So this is lecture 1B for Monday, April 13th. We're in the middle of discussing where the source of Radu's ability to resist evil comes from. And what we've seen is that it's Radu's identifying with his father, the fact that Radu does not see himself even as having a will of his own. His will is his father's will. And that's why for him, the choice is not between Genshed. That's why Genshed has no power over him. He cannot break his will, break his spirit, because for Radu, it's a choice not between his own self and Genshed, but it's a choice between being one with his father, his relationship with his father and his relationship with Genshed. And Radu sees that so clearly. And it's nothing. His father is too important to him. His father identity is his identity. He does not have an identity separate from his father's. And now look how Adams brings us into dramatic relief in chapter 54 as we come to the climax of the book. And remember how important Radu is and the character of Radu is to understanding this. So chapter 54 begins at the pool there, and beside that deserted village, and it's a pool that Keldric, it looks like the pool where Keldric first discovered the sick Shardik at the beginning of the book. Same kind of vine, and Keldric's sure this means that now he's going to die here, that this is going to be the place of his death. It was the place, a similar setting was the place of his beginning with his birth with Shardik, and now he's seen this is the place of his death. And here Genshed is, and Shara starts crying, and Genshed tells her, Shara's dying. She's dying. And he has Radu, he asked Radu to help Shouter to act as one of his overseers. Bled has run away and Shouter started to run away, and then something attacked Bled, and Shouter, in greater terror of that thing. So we already know, and Keldric has already mentioned as he was waiting outside the hut where Lalak and Genshed were keeping the night, and where Genshed eventually killed Lalak, and where Keldric learns that Genshed all the time knew who he was and was keeping him for ransom, for bartering for his life, for Genshed's life. And Keldric recognized in the distance Shardik's shadow. So all of a sudden, here's the presence of the power of God. The presence of the power of God, this bear, but everyone's under the power of evil. And Radu is completely unaware of that presence. But here is Genshed asks Radu, as though he were already an overseer, with Shouter to remove Lalak's dead body. And then when they return and notice, Genshed stepped forward and took Radu gently by the shoulders. There's no show of force here. Remember, Radu has to want. He has to be in complete submission to Genshed. Now, Radu, he said with a kind of serene joy, go and bring Shara here. Be quick. Okay, Radu stared back from between his hands. She can't be moved. She's ill. She may be done. He paused a moment, and then he cried, you know that. Go and fetch her, repeated Genshed very quietly. And Radu goes and fetches her. See how much he's come under Genshed's power. And Radu brings her to Genshed, crying in his arms. She was struggling. The boy could scarcely carry her. His voice, as he tried to soothe and comfort her, was barely audible above her half-delirious, frightened crying. Radu, Radu, don't let me alone, Radu. I don't want to go to Leg by Lee. Leg by Lee is the children's word for death. Hush, dear, hush, said Radu, clutching at her clumsily as he tried to hold her still. We're going home. I promised you, remember? Hurts, wept the child. Go away, Radu. It hurts. She stared at Genshed without recognition, her own filth covering her as debris covers the streets of a fallen town. Dirty saliva ran down her chin, and she picked weakly at the flaking crust around her nostrils. Suddenly she cried out again, evidently in great pain, and passed a thin stream of urine, cloudy and white as milk, over the boy's arms. The child's dying. Come along. Give her to me, Radu, said Genshed, holding out his hands. She makes too much noise, whispered Genshed. Genshed's getting quiet, licking his lips. He's like an animal. Evil's portrayed like an animal. Give her to me, Radu. In that moment, the Keldric tried to step forward. Keldric tries to intervene at this point, because he realized Radu had refused to obey Genshed. So Keldric's stepping there to shield Radu, to protect him. But he can't, because he's chained to these other children. And what Radu does, he turns around. And notice this supreme moment. Radu turns around. He brought Shara to Genshad at Genshad's request. But here he knows what Genshad's going to do with her. And it's like summoning the last bit of his will. Where does the power to resist come from? This is a child. He turns and with Shara's head rolling limply on his shoulder, began to stumble away. No, Radu, said Genshad in the same quiet tone. Come back here. Radu ignored him, moving slowly on, his head bowed over his burden. So Genshad loses it at that moment, throws his knife at Radu, and he has to go and seize Shara from Radu. And this is the moment, we won't go further into this, while Genshad brutally murders the little girl by throwing her body into the pool of water and holding it to the bottom of the pool till she drowns. They see the bubbles no longer coming. So here he kills Shara, and then her little body plops back up afterwards and floats on the surface of the pool. What else does Radu have to do now? Protecting her, because that was his father's will. He couldn't break that oneness with his father. Notice the depth at which that boy is one with his father. And then we have them move along, and here comes the ultimate test then. Genshad is still determined, and he knows Keldric is no longer used to him. He's getting ready. He finds the boat. It's like right there ready for him. Everything seems to be going Genshad's way. And so he's going to get rid of Keldric. He ties the children up to a stone. He's getting ready to drown them all. What slave children are still with him. And then he stops and he asks Radu he heats up a knife and asks Radu to put out Keldric's eyes. And Keldric's like, go ahead, Radu. It's okay. My life is forfeit. And who else but the son of El-Arath? Who else but the son I betrayed into the hands of a slaver, a slave master? Who else has the right to kill me but you? Keldric says, it's okay. And this is Radu's point. Remember, he wasn't sure he could give his life. He could die. He didn't. He submitted to Genshad's will. He didn't try to run out to his father's soldiers. But at this moment, Radu, maintaining his oneness with his father is more important to him than his life. And this oneness isn't something that just happened. It wasn't developed through a couple years at SEU of making commitments in chapel services, of responding to altar calls and engaging in worship and doing church activities and feeding the poor and that kind of thing. No, it was years and years and years of being one with his father, of his father being the center and focus and his ideal man, who he wanted to be. So he's making these decisions every day of his life. His will is not his own, in obedience to what his father would have him do. And the result of that kind of, can I say, radical discipleship? We think of radical discipleship as, oh, I'm going to go off and give my life, on the mission field. Well, heck, you're going to run for your life as soon as it's threatened, unless you've been giving your life every day of your life. You refuse to take advantage of that girlfriend who's suddenly so willing to give her body to you. No, you step back from that because you're one with your father. You're not going to cross your father's boundaries. You're not going to disobey him. Look at that. And here at this point, we see the result. And Radu alone in the whole book is able to exercise this kind of resistance. And he walks away. It's like, okay, Genshad, kill me. The knife drops out of his hand. He refuses. He refuses to lift a hand against Keldric, who was his father's sworn enemy. We kind of see this love your enemies thing in action here. Such oneness with his father. And in that we see Radu walking away, and we see the culmination of his character. There's a little more to come with Radu. Listen carefully or read carefully in chapters 55 through 57. Watch for how Radu responds to others. After Genshad's death, Shardik appears then and kills Genshad. We'll look at that on Wednesday a little more closely as we look at Shouter's character as well. I want to bring your attention to the close of book 6, called Genshad. The last book, the last few chapters of Shardik is called The Power of God. It ends with the power of God, not the power of Genshad, not the power of evil. Adams is saying something here about evil not just being resisted, but being overcome. And here, look at Radu's last words, lest you think that I am misinterpreting or reading anything into what Adams is about, what he's saying in this novel. So Shardik has killed Genshad as he dies from Genshad's arrow simultaneously. And Keldric, his father's soldiers show up, and Keldric offers his life in forfeit. You know, I'm the enemy of your leader. My life's forfeit. You can kill me now. And he broke off and would have fallen had not the officer, his perplexity now complete, caught him with one arm about his shoulders. He asked Keldric, he thought Keldric was the slave trader who was responsible for all of this evil done to all of the children they've been finding in the forest. Steady, my boy, steady. What's all this now? Oh, he's talking to Radu, excuse me. The boy comes up, looks at him with authority, and said in native Yeldeshe, "You are not to hurt that man, Captain. Wherever my father may be, please send someone at once to tell him that you have found Eswi." He broke off and would have fallen had not the officer, his perplexity now complete, caught him with one arm about his shoulders. "Steady, my boy, steady. What's all this now? Who is your father? And who are you if it comes to that? Who are you if it comes to that?" I'm Radu, son of Elarath, Ban of Sarkid. His identity is in his father. Who are we? Are we sons and daughters? Remember what Melitha said to Keldric, who gives up instead of knowing their sons and daughters. Okay, sons and daughters, all We'll pick this up on Wednesday. We'll finish Shardik and finish the week and have a blessed Monday and Tuesday till then.